Because that's how I see the universe. Every waking second I can see what is, what was, what could be, what must not. That's the burden of the Time Lords, Donna, and I'm the only one left. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Fire of Pompeii, written by James Moorman and is directed by Colin Teagues. This is the second episode of Series 4, the third series starring David Tennant, and also features, of course, Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. This episode is the first past story featuring the companion of Donna Noble. Originally, this was scheduled to be episode 3. However, Russell T Davies wasn't so keen on his idea for episode 2, Planet of the Oods, and so he decided to swap it around with this story so that the tone, having Donna being a lot more humorous in this story, would fit better with the audience's expectations for the character before leading into her with a much darker story, a much more character study and a burden on her character specifically. I wouldn't say though, however, that story, that example, that description doesn't really affect the story, because this does a lot for Donna's character and her mobility throughout the series of Series 4, as well as just being a great character piece of her narrative. Now, it would be stupid of me if I didn't mention that this story stars not only one, but two actors that would become hugely prominent in the series moving forward. One of them being one of the Soothsayers, being played by none other than Katie Gillan, who would later go on to play Amy Pond in Series 4 and 5. Series 5 and 6 of the revived series, before going and playing Nebula in the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avenger films. And it also stars, more prominently in this story, Peter Capaldi, who would later go on to play the 12th incarnation of the Doctor. Seeing him in this role, now knowing that he would go on to play the Doctor, and a very iconic, a very distinct Doctor, it's really hilarious to see him in this role. It is very bizarre, very odd, and just overall, it's just a weird and odd feeling. However, of course, when this episode aired back in 2008, we did not know this. He was just an actor who has been known to be a huge fan of the series, but this is his first role inside Doctor Who. Similar to how David Tennant has had multiple roles in the Big Finish audio dramas before appearing in the show proper as the 10th Doctor. Very cool stuff. Now, in terms of the overall audience's reception for this story, I remember watching this as a kid and absolutely falling in love with it. This was one of my favourites of Series 4 back when I was younger. As I've stated before in my Partners in Crime, back then I was very hit and miss with this series because of my childish, my stubborn opinion on Catherine Tate as an actress and as the way she presents herself. So all of those stories would kind of nag to me as a kid, with the fact that Catherine Tate was in it. But overall, I always thought this was one of the better ones, one of the greatest stories in the series. And really fun, really enjoyable. I liked the concept, I liked the settings, I liked everything about it. However, I had discovered a little while ago that this story isn't actually a popular story. A lot of people have criticised this story for either being slow, being incredibly weak in terms of plot, and some of the main criticisms, as we will get on to, revolves around the family that is sort of the heart of the narrative. So that's kind of strange. So was I right as a kid to vlog this story, or did the rest of the mainstream audiences have a point when they said this story was pretty dull and tedious? It's awesome. Whoever tells you otherwise is factually wrong. Okay, I'm joking there, but I still really enjoy this story. Just overall, the board, the emotions, the characters in here are absolutely phenomenal. The story starts off with the Doctor taking Donna to what he believes is Rome, and we get Donna's usual reaction. She's just absolutely amazed. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm in Rome! It's amazing." And this is something that will happen, which hasn't never happened before. But because Donna is such a character like this, who's much more bombastic, she just, is caught in the energy of things, it does actually make sense that she is actually one of the first characters to point this out. Because here we get mentions of the TARDIS translation circuits, as Donna is like, "Hold on, are you having a laugh? Those signs are in English." And the Doctor points out about the TARDIS translation circuits and that at this very moment, they're speaking Latin. And Donna is absolutely amazed by this, by the fact that she can speak Latin. But then she brings up a point. If everyone's speaking English in her mind and she's speaking Latin in everyone else's language, what happens if she, in her English mind, says something in Latin? How would that sound like to a person who speaks Latin outside the field of the TARDIS telekinetic... yes, of course. Telepathic circuits. And I love how the Doctor has no idea. He is completely baffled by this. So Donna, of course, asks one of the merchants there something in Latin, which she has learned in Latin, and it turns out that she is speaking Welsh. That's kind of interesting. Obviously, English wasn't a language that was invented back in, I believe this episode set in 64 AD. So Welsh was the closest thing at the moment, so maybe it's like a reverse. If you speak Latin in Latin, it comes out as English, but that's beside the point. And then they kind of noticed that Rome doesn't seem like Rome. I love the little reference that the Doctor says it, he's been to Rome before. Before you ask, I had nothing to do with the fire. Well, maybe a little bit. A reference to the first Doctor story, The Romans. So that's really tiny but a massive connection to that story. However, the earth starts shaking. The earth starts to... there's suddenly a massive earthquake as the Doctor realises they're not in Rome. They're in Pompeii, and it's Volcano Day. This story centres around the historical event of the Fires of Pompein, the Fire of Vulcan, as it's sometimes referred to. For those of you who don't know, Pompeii was one of the biggest cities in the Roman times. However, it seemingly overnight disappeared, and it turned out many years later that a volcano erupted and killed everybody in the village. However, back in those days, they didn't actually even know what a volcano is. They had no idea. They thought it was the gods coming down and punishing people. This is, I think it's the first ever volcano in human history to be erupted. I could be wrong on that point, but it's one of the first big instance of volcanoes in human times. So that's the main focus. Something that has actually been mentioned before in Doctor Who, in episodes like The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances, where Jack and the Ninth Doctor mention Pompeii. And so the Doctor basically realises it's right, we gotta get out of here. This is a massive historical event and we cannot, for the life of us, change the past. Now, with any other companion that we have seen so far, they would they won't necessarily agree, but they kind of understand the concept that you can't change history, you can't change time. But Donna Noble isn't that kind of companion. You show her she's a bit thick on the science side, which means that the whole idea of timelines and change in time, something that just blows over her head, something that she doesn't even remotely think about, but she knows that these people are going to die. And her first idea is to evacuate. They have a day left to solve, to get everyone safe and sound, but the doctor is like, no, we are getting out of here and we are not changing anything. We cannot warn them. If you go around telling people like the volcanoes are going to erupt, they're just going to call you a mad crazy lady and they won't even listen to you anyway. You cannot change this history, this event in the timeline. So we've got to go. And so the Doctor and Donna head back to the TARDIS, only that it turns out it has been stolen. Well, not exactly stolen, sold. That's a better word for it. As a merchant, the TARDIS landed on some merchant's land, and somebody, a character by the name of Carcilius, played by Peter Capaldi, had actually bought it as a part of modern art, and he's this famous marble owner in Pompeii, and he sells all the marble. If you want marble, he's your man, as he says. The idea of Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor, basically stealing the TARDIS from the 10th Doctor is absolutely hilarious. I would like to put my own headcanon into this story for you audiences out here. This is actually the 12th Doctor. Maybe his memories have been altered somewhat. Maybe maybe he kind of knows what's happened and he's got to kind of play with the events. But this is the 12th Doctor who's tried to steal the 10th Doctor's TARDIS, only remembering after he bought it, right, this is how these scenes play part. I remember everything and I've got to play the part. Because Peter Capaldi is so, it's Peter Capaldi. He's one of the most iconic actors in terms of his performance. He's just so great and so utilised. Now, this is where we get into basically the heart of the story, and that is something which again gets criticised heavily for this adventure, and that is the concept of the family. The Carcilius family, which has the father figure who is basically he's like a kind of trying to show off to the family. You've got your typical bossy mother type. You've got this son who doesn't listen to the rules. He's kind of fed up with everything and all the ideas, and he's kind of a bit of a rebel. And you've also got the daughter character who is destined to become a soothsayer, and she's been breathing this steam from the heat from the fires of Vulcan. I can't remember the mountain's called. Verusas, something like that, and this is making her extremely ill. But the main criticism people have is with the dialogue. And if that's your issue, I am not here to say that you are wrong. There are clearly, there is this style about them in which it's presented as a kind of spoof of modern era with jokes about Marx and Spencerus, Romeos, like stuff like that, and they have they're basically presented as like a modern family in Roman times. Think of them similar to the Flintstones, where it's like a modern family in the caveman era, but now it's in Pompeii. And if that's your issue, that's your problem with them, yes, that is true, and yes, they do kind of get that kind of elements are kind of frustrating and do distract from the absolute greatness of this story. But I want to stress this enough. There are some really, really great scenes. The Doctor disguises himself as a marble inspector going by the name Spartacus, which Donna also goes by Spartacus, and we get one of our first running jokes of them being brother and sister, not a married couple. kind of funny like that. And the Doctor is quickly, he sees the TARDIS, it's like, right, okay, we better go. Whilst Donna tries and warns them about the volcano, and the Doctor points out, it's like they don't even have a word for volcano yet. They don't know what a volcano is. So when Donna's like you better be careful of the volcano, and the characters are just like, what? Sorry, what's this volcano? Never heard of it. What do you want about? What is this volcano? And that puts a massive strain onto the relationship here of the Doctor and Donna. And then a character, what's his name? Tethelius, the Dexterus, comes in, and he is like somebody who is like a very high class individual in the city of Pompeii, and he speaks with like these words of wisdom. And the guy who plays him, I want to stress, he is a very strange actor. It doesn't seem like for what he's doing, the role is perfect. This evil character which we'll talk about, like his abilities in a minute. This kind of acting is kind of straight, serious face, showing very little emotion, as he's supposed to be this high-leading Roman individual. No, not Roman, but a Pompeian? Is that what you call people who live in Pompeii? This kind of acting really suits him, suits this role. However, I've seen this actor in other things. Stuff like, of course, he was in the first episode of Sherlock, the Stephen Moffat Sherlock, and he's been in other things as well. And this acting, he does this with every role. It's very strange. Now, the daughter of the family comes into the room, and she is absolutely ill. She looks absolutely horrible. Some might say, oh, that's some great makeup work, and some of you might even go, oh my god, she genuinely looks ill. And if you're concerned for her, that's because she was. The actress who played the character had food poisoning the day before, and she was incredibly ill filming these scenes. Something which she said she was kind of grateful for, because she thought it helped her performance, as, you know, the character was also ill during this scene. That's just absolutely mental. And the Doctor decides, like, we got to get going. Shut up, we can't help these people, we got to go. Well, it turns out then the marble that Carcilius has been hired to produce looks like a circuit from an electrical equipment, piquing the Doctor's interest and their curiosity. And the Doctor wonders, it's like, that looks strange, that looks very odd. And even Donna's like, hold on, that looks like a circuit board, how is this even possible? Whilst this is going on, the daughter character basically announces to everybody, they laugh at us. They are, they take the mick out of us. Look at you noble man, you like a doctor. And the other character, the character Dexterus, comes in and is like, this woman, her powers are weak and her mind is feeble. But the Doctor kind of defends her, and it's just like, oh, no, you've got your right. And I love the scene, the way it builds up. And I love, watch this scene again, watch what the camera does. When you notice it, it blows my mind. Like, I got to kind of catch it, because it plays so well into the narrative. It's so well. Basically, the camera, whilst it's slowly revealing that these characters have psychic abilities, the camera slowly tilts, and it starts off kind of subtle, and as when the daughter starts rambling and is like, okay, here's a bit of a mystery. How does she know this? How does she know about the Doctor? How does she know about Donna and all that? And all the characters are trying to tell her to shut up. She's imagining things, and the Doctor's like, oh no, she's telling the truth. And Dexterus is just like, is that so, man from Gallifrey? and the Doctor turns his head, and then the camera starts tilting to a really extreme point as the camera it zooms up on people. Basically, when cameras go on a tilt, it's usually shorthand for big resolutions, as the world has basically been flipped, it's been turned, showing the point of view of our characters. And I love the fact that it starts slowly, and as the scene gets more aggressive, the tilt gets more aggressive. I know I'm rambling too much on this one scene, there's a lot to talk about, but the way that scene is shot, the way that scene plays out and is directed, and the earthquake starts building up in the background, and everything starts to intensify as the heat starts roaring in. Just phenomenal. It's just a massive piece of artwork. I love this scene. I absolutely love it. I also again want to point out Murray Gold's music. The scene in which Tethelius actually walks in with that dun 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 dun. Brilliant. Absolutely love it, and that's kind of used as a sort of theme song throughout his own leitmotif. This is a character who only has one story. He's only in this adventure. He has a leitmotif. How awesome is that? Just mental. I also noticed I'm babbling on about stuff that doesn't really matter in terms of the plot, but I just want to just get away. That scene is just so good. And so we have this introduction then of the big bad, the big monsters, the Pyrovelians, these giant stone soldiers that are king put together by sentient magma, and they have the ability to shoot flames out of their mouth, and their big weakness is water. And the Doctor actually tries to get some information, and he realizes, of course, that Dexterus knows a lot more than he is saying, believing that these creatures are in fact gods from the mountain of Soothsayers. So the Doctor takes the son to investigate Dexterus's work, whilst Donna tries to help recover with the girl who is predicts his future. And Donna has this small little moment where she jokes about all the boys in the streets and all that. And the girl, she tries to ask the girl about the future, specifically any visions of the day of tomorrow, what's going to happen tomorrow, and she actually sees nothing, despite every prophecy so far from them coming true. I forgot to mention as well, that scene actually does tease part of the story arc, but I feel like the scene there is played so well, and it's so thing that I kind of do forgive it, even though it is kind of distracting how the Doctor's been told she is returning, and yet after this the Doctor completely forgets about that, and he turns to Donna and is like, there's something on your back. Again, like nobody even like branches up. It's like, Donna, is there something on your back? I can't see anything on your back. That's there's something that gets teased up for later episodes, but it is kind of distracting, but on a sense as well that in context of the scene, not really much of the story, but in context of the scene, it really works. I am kind of defending it there, even though it's something that I do heavily criticise in other stories. I do understand that. But anyway, Donna tries to warn the daughter about the fires of Pompeii. She's basically like, right, I have a prophecy of my own. There's going to be fire, there's going to be eruption, the mountain is going to explode into flame, and there's going to be ash and dust which is going to cover and bury everyone and kill everybody on sight. Even if you don't believe me, just take it to holiday, just get out of town and save yourselves. Even if you don't believe me, just please save yourselves. And she does a psychic connection and teleporting it to this cult of Soothsayers. Now, a lot of people do bring up the fact that this cult of women are a lot like the Sisterhood of Khan from the story The Brain of Morbius. And in a way, that is kind of a fair criticism. The fact that they are so alike in terms of their personalities and the way they're structured, I do understand that. However, A, the story here uses them completely different, and B, the Sisterhood of Khan are actually inspired by a real-life cult group from Roman and Greek mythologies, ideologies, times. So, there's that. You want an argument for that? You want to fight that? I'm not going to have time to talk about everything I want to, so I do apologise if I miss bits. Donna gets kidnapped, and she's about to get sacrificed by the cult, and the Doctor realises that she has gone missing. Actually arrives in the Soothsayers' place of worship, which apparently only women can be. And I love David Tennant's reaction, like, "Oh, don't worry, just as girls." That's just that little bubbly moment. Yeah, it is kind of a plot convenience. The Doctor just so happens to know where they are, and the Doctor gets introduced to this character who is turned into stone. Basically, all of the people who are telling the future, like the daughter and Dexedus, their bodies are slowly turned into stone, and the Doctor and Donna meet up with this character who is almost completely stone, and her mind is in two forms, with her human mind and her Paravillian mind, fighting basically for control. And the Doctor defeats her by using a water pistol, absolutely phenomenal, and her and the Doctor, Donna and the Doctor, they actually walk into the mountain, trying to discover what is going on. We then learn that they are using alien technology to harness the energy of the volcano. These aliens, they have been trapped on this planet after their home world, Paravillian, was vanished. It disappeared. It is kind of annoying how we get the exact same reaction from the 10th Doctor. How can a planet be gone? He says that exact same thing in Partners in Crime and in here, which kind of pushes it into your face. It's like, oh look, this is going to be important. How could a planet be gone? It was destroyed somehow. We don't know. We'll tease that. That's something for you to find out later on, Doctor. And so the Doctor finds their ship, and the Doctor's like, tries to get him to talk, and is like, what will happen if these aliens get what they want? And this character Dexedus, who basically works as like the voice of the Paravillians, he says something like, the world will fall under molten lava, consuming the entire world, boiling all the water, allowing for these great godlike alien creatures to take over the earth. And the Doctor realizes, okay, I gotta stop you, gotta stop this machine from working, or get to destroy the entire planet. And so him and Donna get into the space shuttle. Now, it looks like a very medieval version of a Sontaran ship. There was apparently that was actually an idea, that their ship was actually used from Sontaran technology. As Russell T Davies notes in his Writer's Tale book, the reason that was done is because they kind of knew that they could use the same prop, the Sontaran ship, with this. It's unclear whether they actually did, but the resemblance is still there. And the Doctor realizes, like, the reason why these people who see the future, they can't see Pompeii exploding, is because it's not going to explode. It's never going to erupt. The mountain was actually incredibly sterile, and these these aliens are using it as an energy source and building it up and building it up and building it up and using that building for their energy source. Releasing it now will create a massive volcanic eruption where then it clicks. And this is probably one of the most iconic, one of the best endings, and this is where I kind of get, not annoyed, but I am kind of confused as to why this is such an unpopular story. This is one of the most iconic, one of the most heart-graining scenes in the 10th Doctor era. One of the moments which I think gets a lot of people. And it's in this story, where the Doctor basically, because we get a scene earlier on where the Donna is like, why can't you change history? Now that you know it's aliens, can you change it? Now can you think? But the Doctor basically points out his view that's like, I can't change history. I know what is. It's the quote that I put at the start of the video. So this is actually one of the first stories that mentions fixed points. Not as in, the Doctor can't change history, but certain segments of time, certain events cannot be changed, whereas other can. And the Doctor knows what's fixed points or not, and can see what needs to be changed or what not to be. And that is the Time Lord curse, that's the Time Lord burden. The way the Doctor describes it sounds more like it's a genetic sense the Time Lord have, rather than the Doctor doing his history and knowing that Pompeii is going to erupt. Of course he knows this, but it's something to do with more of his sense. He knows, he gets this feeling, this Time Lord sixth sense of how time should be progressing. And so the Doctor has to come up with a choice. He is the one that will erupt the volcano. It's either the world or Pompeii. All those people he's befriended, all of those villagers in the streets, they're all going to die. And they're all going to die because of him. And the Doctor's putting his hand, he is struggling. David Tennant's acting, and Catherine Tate, because throughout the entire story, she's kind of slowly realising that you can't change history, you can't change time, how much horrible it is, how evil it is. You just can't change it. And Donna throughout the story kind of learns the concept of you can't change history. And so she puts her hand on the Doctor, helping him to push the trigger to release the volcano ash, destroying the volcanic creatures. Of course, the science, not the science, but the idea doesn't kind of match up. It's kind of implied that these creatures kind of feed, they kind of need the energy of the volcano. So this should technically give them more power. But, we need some way of ending it out. And so the ship actually is an escape pod, crashing it onto the side of the volcano as the Doctor and Donna run back to Carcilius's house, and the Doctor basically tells Donna to hurry up, come on, and the Donna's just looking at the people and she's like, I'm so sorry. She jumps into the TARDIS, and we then get one of the greatest scenes, which, let's be honest, hasn't aged well thanks to episodes like Day of the Doctor, in which Donna basically pleads with the Doctor. It's like, you can't just let them die. We've got to at least do something. And the Doctor's like, I can't. There's nothing you can do. It's like, Donna tries to basically guilt trip him. It's like saying, your whole planet died. Your entire family died. And the Doctor is like, well, that's the point. Can't you see? If I could go back in time and change it and stop everybody from dying and stop my world from burning, then I would. But I can't, because those are fixed points. Again, Day of the Doctor kind of ruined that concept. But Donna does something I absolutely love. She goes, don't save everyone. Just save someone. And then we get one of the most iconic... Yes, it's cheesy as hell. Yes, it's really corny. But my God, does the scene build off the emotions that we've been building up throughout this story that makes this scene so epic, in which you see the Carcilius family all gathering up with each other as they see a light flashing in front of them, as the TARDIS doors open, as the 10th Doctor reaches out his hand and just says, "Come with me." As Peter Capaldi grabs his hand and gets taken into the TARDIS to watch the destruction of Pompeii from a safe distance. And the Doctor basically gives them nice words of like, Pompeii will be forgotten, the stories will fade, and people will forget. But they will remember again. Things will, they will be restored and they will be remembered for all eternity. And our characters are just looking in awe at this destruction of this immense pain and misery and death that is postponed onto this small village. History has taken in front of them a natural event that nobody can stop, apart from really the Doctor and Donna, because they know that this wasn't a true natural event. This is something that the Doctor had to do to keep the timelines affixed. And so the Doctor and Donna walk away as we get a sort of post-story scene. If it was a Marvel movie, it'd be a post-credit scene in which these characters, the family, are now in Rome, and they're basically starting up again, and something happens with the son, and they basically, it's like, you should be ashamed of yourself, apologise for the household gods, where it's revealed that these characters now worship the Doctor and Donna, believing that they are some sort of gods that saved them from Pompeii, ending our story. So that's the Fires of Pompeii. Why is this one so hated? I mean, it's not hated, but a lot of people consider this pretty weak, pretty meh. Why? Honest to God, sure the family aspects of the story are a bit weak and a bit silly, but there's so many great scenes. I'd even mention some of them, from the Doctor and the son being chased by a pavilion that's underneath the village, to just so many great CGI works with the pavilions. There's just so many great moments. Oh yeah, and the Doctor smashing Maximus's hand. Love that scene. There's just so many great scenes. The story moves at a breaking pace. It's so quick and engaging. There's a lot of emotional hooks in this venture. And what's really great is that they're focused. They are on point. The story is about Donna and her discovering the fixed point in time, realising that you can't just go back and change time. Just because the Doctor has a time machine doesn't mean he can fix every problem. You've got to accept that sometimes horrible things like this happen in history, and you've just got to accept that they happen. And the fact that Donna is such a character who doesn't understand the concept of this, because she doesn't have a scientific background, she is a much more personality over anything else, means that this story is really suitable to her character. It's a story which I think would only work. Actually, it could work with other characters, but it wouldn't work in this way without Donna Noble. Making Donna Noble such a unique, fascinating companion. And this story just has also some great moments and some great acting. And it's Peter Capaldi interacting with the 10th Doctor. Who doesn't want to see that? So there you go, that's Fires of Pompeii. Actually, I would even say it's one of my favourite stories of Series 4. So there you go, that's Fires of Pompeii. So join me next time when the tortured team have to deal with the death of one of their fallen friends. Or have they? Or can they change events so that their friend isn't dead? So join me next time for Dead Man Walk In. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.